What if I told you that everything the world thinks it knows about Meghan Markle's baby could be wrong? That the sweet, innocent story of Lilibet's birth, the moment that should have been celebrated around the globe, may have been clouded by secrecy, contradictions, and claims that some might call outright deception? Imagine millions of people following along, celebrating milestones, posting congratulations, believing a story that might not have happened the way they thought. It's hard to process, isn't it? And yet, that's exactly the claim being made right now. Dr. Dake, a voice that the media is scrambling to validate, has spoken, and what he said has sent shockwaves not just through the tabloids, but through royal circles, social media, and the minds of fans worldwide. Lilibet isn't real, or at least, not according to the timeline we've been told. According to this revelation, the beloved baby girl's birth date, June 4th, 2021, is now being called into question. And Meghan Markle? Sources claim she broke into a visible sweat when confronted with this news. The images, the statements, the rumors, all of it is converging into a story so strange, so emotionally charged, that the world is struggling to process it. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. So, let's start at the beginning. Let's take this slowly, because if you blink, you might miss a key twist, a detail, a revelation that turns the entire story upside down. The reason this matters isn't just gossip. This is a story that involves truth, perception, and how narratives are shaped by those with influence. When someone like Dr. Dake speaks, people listen. But his claim is explosive. If he's right, the world has been misled about one of the most publicized births in recent royal history. And if he's wrong? Well, the fallout from that alone is enough to shake reputations and careers. So where does the truth lie? That's the question we're here to explore. Dr. Dake is not some random commentator. He is someone whose credibility is being weighed heavily against what has been presented by Meghan, Prince Harry, the palace, and their official communications. The tension is immediate. You have a highly scrutinized family, a beloved figure in Meghan Markle, and a claim that threatens to unravel a story that the public has embraced. What makes this even more riveting is the emotional undercurrent. Meghan is known for her composure under pressure, for navigating the relentless media machine with poise. But insiders say that when confronted with Dr. Dake's statement, she was visibly shaken. Sweat reportedly gathered on her brow, a small but telling sign of stress. It's a detail that seems minor at first, but when you consider the stakes, it speaks volumes. Could it be that this is more than just a media storm? Could it be that a secret, long held behind the scenes, is finally spilling into the open? And yet, this story isn't simple. From the very first day the news broke, contradictions began to appear. Social media exploded with speculation. Fans combed through timelines, photos, and official announcements. Every detail of Lilibet's birth suddenly felt like a puzzle with missing pieces. People began asking questions they had never asked before. Why was the announcement made when it was? Why do some sources appear to contradict each other? Is it possible that public statements were carefully choreographed to protect certain narratives? Or is this merely a case of misinformation spreading faster than the truth can catch up? The beauty of this story, or perhaps its tragedy, is that no one can say for certain yet. And that uncertainty is what makes it irresistible. Now, you might be asking yourself, why would anyone fabricate a birth date? Why would such a personal and intimate moment be shrouded in confusion? The answer, as with most things involving the royal family, is likely layered. There are political considerations, personal privacy, media scrutiny, and the weight of public expectation. But as we will see, these layers of motivation often create contradictions, gaps in narratives, and, ultimately, opportunities for explosive revelations. Dr. Dake's claim doesn't just challenge a date on a calendar. It challenges trust, perception, and the story the public has been told. And in a world where every statement is scrutinized and every image analyzed, such a claim becomes almost impossible to ignore. What makes this story even more compelling is the timing. We are not talking about an event from decades ago. We are talking about a recent, highly publicized birth. The moment Meghan and Harry shared their joy with the world, millions of eyes were watching, celebrating, reacting. And now, almost overnight, that certainty has been called into question. Imagine the emotional impact, the joy turning into doubt, the pride turning into confusion. And what about Meghan herself? She has been a symbol of poise, strength, and resilience, navigating media storms for years. But insiders suggest that Dr. Dake's revelation was a blow even she could not have anticipated. It's one thing to face criticism, rumors, or even public scorn. It's another to have a trusted story, the very foundation of your public image, suddenly challenged in such a dramatic, seemingly factual way. And yet, the story is far from over. In the next segments, we'll dig deeper into who Dr. Dake is, why his claim carries weight, and how this revelation fits into a broader picture of royal scrutiny, media pressure, and public fascination. We'll explore timelines, leaked documents, insider accounts, and social media evidence. Each piece adds complexity, contradiction, and intrigue. The stakes are higher than most imagine, and the ramifications are as much emotional as they are factual. This isn't just a story about a baby's birth. It's a story about trust, secrecy, and the relentless pursuit of truth in a world that craves drama. But before we dive into the details, ask yourself this. What would it mean if the timeline of Lilibet's birth were completely inaccurate? What does it say about the people who control narratives, the voices that the world listens to, and the stories we choose to believe? As you sit there, scrolling or watching, think about the power of information, the fragility of perception, and the thrill of uncovering truths that others may wish to keep hidden. Because what comes next is more than just revelation. It's a deep dive into a story that could rewrite everything we thought we knew about Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, and their family. And just as you think you understand, the next revelation lands, heavier than the last. Leaks, insider testimonies, and conflicting accounts will force you to question not just the facts, but the very process by which those facts reach the public. Each layer we peel back introduces new questions, new doubts, and new intrigue. And it all begins here, with a statement, a sweat-soaked reaction, and a question that will haunt royal watchers and casual observers alike. What if everything we thought we knew about Lilibet's birth was wrong? It all started with a single sentence. One that seemed innocent at first glance, but would quickly ignite a firestorm across media outlets, social media platforms, and royal circles worldwide. Lilibet's birth date may not be accurate, Dr. Dake reportedly stated during a private interview that somehow leaked to the press. That one line, simple and direct, landed like a grenade in a quiet room. For months, the world had followed the story of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's daughter with a sense of awe, fascination, and pride. Social media posts celebrating her milestones had flooded timelines. News networks had covered every angle, every outfit, every adorable smile. And then this. A single claim, voiced by a credible professional, cast doubt on everything the public had been told. Suddenly, the date that everyone had taken as fact, June 4th, 2021, was under attack. The reaction was immediate. Fans and followers flooded Twitter and Instagram with confusion and disbelief. Headlines screamed variations of the same message. Royal shock, Lilibet's birth date disputed, and Dr. Dake questions Meghan Markle's baby timeline. Some reactions were incredulous. How could the story of a baby, something so intimate, be questioned? Others were suspicious. Had there been a coordinated effort to mislead the public? And the emotional beat, for those who followed Meghan closely, was palpable. For months, the Duchess of Sussex had been navigating a relentless media cycle. Every outfit analyzed, every statement dissected, every gesture scrutinized. Now, her personal life, something as private as the birth of her child, was thrust into a new arena of speculation and doubt. Dr. Dake's statement was more than just a casual comment. It carried authority. Unlike gossip columnists or unverified social media posts, his position lent weight to the claim. People were compelled to listen, analyze, and question. The stakes weren't merely for public curiosity. They were for credibility, truth, and perhaps even legal implications. If a trusted medical voice is calling into question the very existence, or at least the timeline, of Lilibet, the ramifications extend far beyond tabloids. The royal family, known for its careful management of narratives, suddenly faced a threat that could not be easily contained. But what exactly did Dr. Dake say, and why did it matter so much? The essence of the statement boiled down to a direct contradiction. According to his medical knowledge, observations, and sources, Lilibet could not have been born on the date officially reported. That simple assertion unraveled months of public documentation, media reporting, and even personal testimonies from people close to Meghan and Harry. The idea that a birth, one of the most celebrated and documented life events in the world, could have a disputed date, sent ripples across multiple platforms. Suddenly, people were not just questioning timelines. They were questioning narratives. Meghan Markle's reaction, according to insiders, was a mixture of shock and calculated poise. Sources claim she broke into a visible sweat when confronted with questions about the statement. It's a detail that might seem trivial, but in context, it tells a story. The Duchess, experienced in facing media storms, had likely anticipated every angle of scrutiny, but this one, coming from a credible medical voice, was different. Sweat, as tiny as it may appear, became a symbol of tension, vulnerability, and the pressure of facing claims that challenge personal truth. Observers noted the subtle signs: a tightened jaw, a momentary pause, a hand brushing against the forehead. It was human, it was real, and it was dramatic, just enough to capture attention without seeming overblown. The media reaction escalated almost instantly. Within hours, the statement was dissected on morning shows, celebrity gossip websites, and social media threads. Every detail, every inflection, every potential implication was analyzed. Headlines carried phrases like "royal family shocked" and "Meghan Markle confronted with truth." The public's reaction was equally intense. Some defended Meghan fiercely, refusing to accept that any claim could undermine her narrative. Others questioned the transparency of the royal family itself, speculating about hidden agendas and secrecy. What was supposed to be a simple fact, a baby's birth date, had morphed into a complex puzzle involving trust, credibility, and perception. Adding layers to the intrigue were the contradictions in available evidence. Public appearances, hospital announcements, and social media posts all aligned with the official narrative. Yet Dr. Dake's statement directly opposed these timelines. The result was cognitive dissonance for the public. What should be an uncontested fact was suddenly up for debate. This tension created a powerful retention hook. Audiences wanted to know what was true, what was false, and why anyone would manipulate such a deeply personal event. Every viewer found themselves asking, "What else don't we know?" The impact on Meghan herself cannot be overstated. For years, she has been both celebrated and vilified by different factions of public opinion. From navigating tabloids to confronting systemic biases within the royal system, Meghan's life has been under scrutiny at a level few can comprehend. To face a new claim questioning her child's birth timeline is not merely inconvenient. It's emotionally taxing, legally complicated, and socially explosive. One insider remarked that the moment she realized the statement was public, Meghan's demeanor shifted. There was a visible tension, a momentary loss of composure, and, as reported, beads of sweat that betrayed her usual calm exterior. The story does not stop at Meghan and Dr. Dake. The ripple effects reached Harry as well. Prince Harry, known for his fierce protection of his family, reportedly engaged in immediate discussions with advisors, media contacts, and legal counsel. The question on everyone's mind was simple yet profound. How do you respond when a medical professional publicly disputes one of the most personal events in your life? The answer, as this story unfolds, is complex, multi-layered, and revealing of both character and strategy. Social media's reaction was almost instantaneous and deeply polarized. Supporters of Meghan took to platforms to defend her, emphasizing that a birth, no matter the date, is sacred and private. Critics, meanwhile, dissected timelines, questioned motives, and speculated endlessly about potential cover-ups. Memes, tweets, and videos proliferated, each one amplifying the drama. The narrative spread faster than traditional media could contain it, illustrating the power of modern information dissemination and the volatility of public opinion. At the heart of the story is an undeniable question of trust. Who do you believe when facts are in dispute? Dr. Dake represents authority. Meghan represents lived experience. Harry represents protective advocacy. The public, meanwhile, is caught in a whirlwind of speculation, fascination, and emotional investment. Every new piece of information, every insider leak, every media report layers onto the story, creating a tapestry of intrigue that is both confusing and captivating. This is why audience retention matters so much here. Each revelation builds tension, each contradiction sparks curiosity, and each emotional beat. Whether it's Meghan's sweat, Harry's protective statements, or a viral tweet, keeps viewers engaged, hungry for the next detail. And yet, even with all this scrutiny, there's more lurking beneath the surface. The media frenzy is just one layer. Behind closed doors, there are conversations, documents, and communications that haven't yet seen the light of day. Leaks, rumors, and insider accounts suggest there is far more to the story than Dr. Dake's statement alone. The initial shock is just the beginning. The real intrigue is in the unfolding consequences, what the palace chooses to say or conceal, how Meghan and Harry respond publicly and privately, and how this revelation could reshape the public's perception of their family. For the audience, this is the irresistible hook. What started as a simple statement about a birth date quickly escalated into a labyrinth of tension, secrecy, and human emotion. Every element, the credibility of Dr. Dake, Meghan's reaction, the palace's potential response, and the global media storm, adds layers of complexity. And just when viewers feel they've grasped the situation, another revelation, another leak, or another insider account emerges, pulling them deeper into the narrative. It's a roller coaster of uncertainty, curiosity, and suspense. But the most shocking part of this story is yet to come. Because Dr. Dake's statement, as explosive as it was, is only the first domino to fall. Documents, insider testimonies, and timeline inconsistencies are waiting just around the corner, each one threatening to upend everything we thought we knew about Lilibet's birth, Meghan's public image, and the royal family's carefully managed narrative. And for Meghan, the question is no longer hypothetical. How do you navigate a storm where every move, every statement, and every detail is under scrutiny? The answer to that question is complex, and it's a story that continues to unfold. And just when you think the story might settle, when you think the shock has passed, the next revelation lands. It's heavier, more compelling, and more difficult to process than the first. The world is watching, waiting for answers. And for those inside the palace, every word, gesture, and statement carries consequences that could echo for years. The intrigue is only deepening, and the stakes have never been higher. When Dr. Dake first made his bombshell statement about Lilibet's birth date, many people reacted with disbelief. Who is this person? Why should we trust them? It's a natural question. After all, in a world overflowing with opinions, rumors, and viral claims, credibility matters. But the more you dig into Dr. Dake's background, the more you realize that this isn't just some casual commentator or fringe conspiracy theorist. He's a professional whose credentials, experience, and public statements carry significant weight, and that weight is exactly what makes his claims so explosive. Dr. Dake is a medical professional with years of experience in obstetrics and pediatrics, a specialization that puts him in a unique position to evaluate claims about birth dates, pregnancy timelines, and neonatal development. His career spans decades, during which he has consulted for hospitals, media outlets, and even high-profile private clients. He is not a stranger to public attention, but rarely has his expertise intersected with a story as globally visible as the birth of a royal baby. And yet, here he was, speaking directly or indirectly into one of the most scrutinized events of the decade, challenging a narrative that the world had largely accepted without question. Understanding who Dr. Dake is helps us see why his statement sparked immediate tension. This is a person whose opinion is grounded in science, observation, and professional experience. Unlike a random commentator on social media, his voice carries authority. That authority transforms what might have been dismissed as gossip into a claim that demands attention. When Dr. Dake said that Lilibet's reported birth date may not be accurate, he didn't do it casually. He framed it as an assessment based on data, evidence, and professional judgment, a framing that forces both the media and the public to take notice. But what motivates Dr. Dake? Why would he speak out on such a sensitive topic? And why now? To answer this, we have to consider the context of his statement. According to insiders, Dr. Dake has been following the royal family's narrative for years, not as a casual observer, but as someone intrigued by the intersection of public image, medical facts, and media portrayal. He has reportedly maintained private conversations with staff, attended select consultations, and analyzed publicly available information. While he maintains professional discretion, the timing of this statement suggests a deliberate choice. To correct perceived inaccuracies and shed light on what he believes is an overlooked truth. There's also the matter of credibility under scrutiny. In today's media environment, anyone making a public statement can be questioned, attacked, or even dismissed outright. But Dr. Dake's reputation provides a buffer against such attacks. He has a long track record of accurate commentary, precise reporting, and professional recognition. That doesn't make him infallible, of course, but it does elevate his claim above the noise of casual speculation. People listen because he has earned the right to be heard. The impact of Dr. Dake's intervention becomes clearer when you consider the audience. Millions of royal watchers, journalists, and casual observers have invested emotionally in the story of Lilibet's birth. They've followed Meghan and Harry's journey, celebrated milestones, and formed opinions based on the narrative presented to them. When someone like Dr. Dake questions that narrative, it introduces doubt, conflict, and a cognitive dissonance that demands resolution. Suddenly, what was simple becomes complex. What was celebrated becomes suspect. The ripple effect is immediate and unavoidable. But Dr. Dake's background also adds layers of intrigue. He is known for maintaining professional boundaries, rarely entering public debates unless he feels a matter is significant. This makes his involvement in the Lilibet story unusual, even striking. Why would a medical professional of his standing choose this moment to speak, knowing full well the global attention it would attract? One possible explanation lies in timing. Perhaps he felt compelled by inconsistencies he observed, or perhaps new information prompted him to break his usual silence. Whatever the reason, the choice was calculated, and the impact undeniable. Even more compelling is the way Dr. Dake has been positioned in this narrative. Some see him as a whistleblower, someone revealing uncomfortable truths that the public has a right to know. Others see him as a catalyst for chaos, a figure whose statement destabilizes public perception and fuels controversy. Both interpretations underscore the tension at the heart of this story. Authority versus perception, fact versus narrative, insider knowledge versus public consumption. The emotional stakes are immense because the story is not merely about a baby. It's about credibility, control, and trust. There's also an element of mystique surrounding Dr. Dake. Despite his public profile, few people have access to his private interactions or insights. Those who have interacted with him describe him as meticulous, precise, and deeply analytical. He observes patterns, questions assumptions, and refuses to accept information at face value. It's a mindset that makes him formidable when evaluating claims, particularly in areas like obstetrics and neonatal timelines. When such a person speaks publicly, the world takes notice. And in this case, that notice has been explosive. But his credibility is not without controversy. Critics question his motivations, suggesting that even a reputable professional can have biases, agendas, or lapses in judgment. After all, how does one assess truth when the very narrative is clouded by secrecy, media spin, and conflicting accounts? Yet the counterpoint is equally compelling. If a professional like Dr. Dake sees inconsistencies and feels compelled to speak, ignoring it could perpetuate misinformation. His choice to engage, even at personal and professional risk, adds a layer of drama and moral complexity to the unfolding story. Dr. Dake's involvement also highlights the tension between public fascination and private reality. Meghan and Harry's lives, though publicized extensively, remain partially opaque. There are personal boundaries, confidential information, and carefully curated narratives. When an authoritative figure like Dr. Dake intervenes, those boundaries are tested. The public, hungry for clarity, is drawn into a web of speculation that blurs the lines between private life and public scrutiny. Every detail becomes magnified, a glance, a gesture, a statement. And in the case of Lilibet's birth date, those details are now being dissected in real time. For the audience, this chapter of the story is about more than facts. It's about context, credibility, and stakes. Who is allowed to speak? Who is believed? And why does it matter if one voice challenges the accepted narrative? Dr. Dake represents authority, Meghan represents lived experience, Harry represents protection and advocacy. The public, meanwhile, is caught in the middle, forced to navigate conflicting claims, emotional reactions, and the gravity of the stakes involved. It's a dynamic ripe for drama, curiosity, and suspense. And yet, even as the world focused on Dr. Dake's statement, there were hints of deeper complexity. Some insiders claimed that he had access to documents, conversations, and evidence that the public had never seen. Others suggested that his claim was only part of a broader narrative, a story that involved timing, media strategy, and possibly even internal disputes within the palace. Each of these possibilities adds tension. The audience is not merely processing a statement, but trying to unravel a layered, multifaceted story. The emotional resonance cannot be overstated. For Meghan, being confronted with a public challenge to her child's birth timeline is profoundly personal. For Harry, it's about protecting his family. For Dr. Dake, it's about speaking truth as he sees it. And for the public, it's about the clash between perception and reality, curiosity and morality, authority and doubt. Every element intersects to create a narrative that is simultaneously intimate and global, personal and universal. Ultimately, the question of who Dr. Dake is does more than explain credibility. It shapes the narrative itself. His expertise, timing, and authority turn a simple statement into a story that cannot be ignored. The public, the media, and the palace are all participants in a drama that unfolds minute by minute, tweet by tweet, leak by leak. And as we move deeper into this story, it becomes clear that understanding Dr. Dake is key to understanding why this revelation matters so profoundly, and why it has sent shockwaves through every corner of public consciousness. But just as we begin to understand the man behind the claim, another layer emerges, one that complicates everything we thought we knew. There are questions about his sources, the accuracy of his assessment, and the possible consequences of speaking publicly. And those questions lead directly into the next phase of the story, the timeline of Lilibet's birth, and why that timeline, according to Dr. Dake, may not add up at all. It sounds impossible, doesn't it? That something as momentous and widely publicized as the birth of a royal baby could have a timeline in dispute. Yet, according to Dr. Dake, that is exactly what we're dealing with. The official story has been clear, consistent, and celebrated. Lilibet Diana Mountbatten-Windsor was born on June 4, 2021. Headlines around the globe announced it. Social media erupted with congratulations. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry shared glimpses of joy and pride. But the moment Dr. Dake's statement entered the conversation, suddenly the date itself was in question, and with it, the story of her earliest days. To understand the magnitude, let's walk through the timeline as it was presented publicly. Leading up to June 2021, Meghan had kept her pregnancy largely private, occasionally hinting at milestones in interviews or public appearances. By late May, official announcements confirmed that the couple was preparing for a hospital birth, with fans speculating and media outlets monitoring every detail. On June 4th, the world collectively celebrated what was presented as a smooth, joyous arrival. Pictures were released. Social media posts went viral. It seemed, to all observers, that the birth date was set in stone. But here's where it gets complicated. According to Dr. Dake, and corroborating whispers from a few insiders, certain medical records, hospital schedules, and even eyewitness accounts suggest that the baby may have arrived days earlier, or possibly even later, than reported. This discrepancy is not minor. In a world where every detail is scrutinized, even a difference of a few days is enough to ignite speculation, distrust, and intense media coverage. Imagine believing one date for months, celebrating around it, only to be told by a credible source that it may be inaccurate. For Meghan and Harry, it's not merely inconvenient, it's destabilizing. Social media users were quick to pick up on inconsistencies. Some pointed to photos from late May that seemed to show Meghan in conditions inconsistent with official timelines. Others dissected statements, interviews, and social appearances, comparing them to the June 4th announcement. The result was a flood of debate, confusion, and argument. People began asking questions that went beyond simple curiosity. Were official announcements manipulated? Was there a reason to obscure the actual timeline? And most importantly, what does it mean for the story the public has been told? To understand why this matters, consider the nature of timing itself. In royal reporting, dates are more than markers. They are signals. They set the narrative, frame the story, and influence media coverage. If Lilibet's birth date was misreported, even slightly, it changes the context of every celebration, every photograph, every statement that followed. It affects how the world perceives Meghan, Harry, and the royal family's transparency. Suddenly, what seemed like a joyous, straightforward event becomes a puzzle with missing pieces. Adding tension to the narrative are eyewitness accounts, some credible, some dubious, that appear to contradict the official story. Neighbors, staff, and hospital personnel have shared conflicting recollections of the timeline. Some claim they saw activity at the hospital earlier than the public knows. Others suggest delays in announcements were strategic. Inconsistencies like these feed public fascination and speculation. People are drawn into the puzzle, trying to reconcile fact with rumor, and every new claim adds suspense. The palace's handling of the announcement also plays a role in the confusion. Unlike a typical hospital birth, the royal family carefully manages every detail. Timing, photography, press statements, and official communications are all orchestrated. Any deviation or delay can appear suspicious, even when it is routine. Dr. Dake's claim shines a spotlight on this process, suggesting that the carefully controlled narrative may not align perfectly with reality. For the public, it raises questions about transparency, motive, and trust. And then there are the implications for Meghan herself. As someone constantly under scrutiny, her every action is documented, analyzed, and judged. If the birth timeline is disputed, it invites speculation about her decisions, intentions, and level of control over the narrative. For a person who has navigated invasive media attention for years, this type of claim can be both frustrating and deeply personal. The emotional stakes are high, not just for the public's perception, but for her own peace of mind and her family's stability. In addition to personal implications, there are logistical ones. Consider the announcements themselves. The public expects precise communication from high-profile figures like Meghan and Harry. A disputed birth date challenges the reliability of that communication. Did the palace or the couple have reasons to present one date over another? Was it a strategy to protect privacy, avoid media intrusion, or control timing for maximum impact? These questions fuel speculation and deepen the intrigue. Every fan, journalist, and observer begins to wonder, what is the truth and who is shaping it? Dr. Dake's statement also invites a closer look at hospital protocols and neonatal procedures. Birth records are typically precise, but even they can be subject to administrative adjustments, reporting delays, or clerical errors. When combined with the global spotlight on Meghan and Harry, these small discrepancies take on outsized significance. A few days' difference is not just a technical detail. It becomes a source of drama, conflict, and public fascination. And because Dr. Dake is a credible medical professional, his perspective forces the audience to take these inconsistencies seriously. The timeline debate also feeds broader narratives about the couple. Meghan and Harry have long been under scrutiny for how they manage public perception. From interviews to social media presence, their choices are carefully observed. A disputed birth date intersects with this ongoing narrative. It becomes more than just a question of days. It's about the integrity of communication, the accuracy of statements, and the authenticity of the couple's public persona. Every contradiction, real or perceived, becomes evidence in a larger story about trust and credibility. What makes this part of the story especially compelling is the human element. It's easy to get lost in dates and timelines, but behind every disputed day is a person navigating immense pressure. Imagine Meghan's perspective. The joy of welcoming a new life, the scrutiny of the media, the weight of public expectation, and then a credible voice calling into question the very timeline she and Harry shared. It's a moment of personal vulnerability amplified by global attention. And it's in that vulnerability that the story gains its emotional resonance. As investigators, journalists, and royal watchers dig deeper, even minor details become magnified. Hospital visitation schedules, social media activity, and even casual remarks from staff are scrutinized for clues. Every new piece of information has the potential to either confirm or contradict Dr. Dake's claim, creating a web of speculation that keeps the public engaged. And the audience, naturally curious, finds itself drawn into the investigation, following leads, questioning motives, and searching for answers. And yet, even with all this attention, clarity remains elusive. Contradictory reports, anonymous leaks, and unverified claims swirl around the central question: when was Lilibet actually born? Dr. Dake's statement may have been the spark, but the fire it ignited continues to rage, fueled by speculation, curiosity, and the emotional stakes that accompany any story involving high-profile figures. Every new insight, every analysis, every claim adds fuel to the narrative, ensuring that the public remains engaged, anxious, and deeply invested. The beauty of this chapter in the story is in its tension. The timeline, which should be simple, is now a source of suspense, speculation, and emotional investment. Audiences are left questioning the facts they once accepted, wondering about the motivations behind the narrative, and anticipating the next revelation. It's a masterclass in storytelling. A single claim disrupts perception, forces inquiry, and drives curiosity. And as the investigation continues, it becomes increasingly clear that the timeline is only the beginning. Because just as the audience grapples with the dates, the next piece of the puzzle emerges. Photographs, insider accounts, and inconsistencies in media reporting begin to surface. Each one adds a layer of complexity, deepening the intrigue. Observers start to ask, if the birth date is disputed, what else might be inaccurate? Are there additional secrets, hidden communications, or strategic decisions that we haven't yet seen? The tension builds. Every moment adds drama, and every revelation pulls the audience deeper into the story. And in the midst of it all, Meghan's reaction remains a focal point. Her poise under pressure, her responses to questions, her gestures captured by cameras, all are analyzed for hints of truth or distress. The audience, captivated, finds itself drawn not only to the facts but to the human drama unfolding before them. It's a story of dates, timelines, and official statements, but also one of emotion, perception, and vulnerability. And just when you think the timeline is all there is, another layer emerges. Conflicting accounts of Lilibet's early days, details of hospital procedures, and even whispers of delayed announcements. These new elements challenge everything previously accepted and prepare the stage for revelations that are even more explosive. The timeline is no longer just a sequence of days. It is a catalyst for drama, suspense, and a narrative that refuses to be simple. Imagine the weight of every eye in the world watching you, waiting for the slightest sign of faltering, scrutinizing every gesture, every expression, every word. For Meghan Markle, that pressure has been constant for years. The media is relentless, the public unforgiving, and the palace unforgiving in its own way. Now, add the bombshell claim from Dr. Dake questioning the birth date of her daughter, Lilibet, and the intensity multiplies. What was meant to be a private, celebratory moment, welcoming a child into the world, suddenly becomes an arena where every reaction is dissected, every nuance magnified, and every mistake potentially catastrophic. Sources close to Meghan suggest that when news of Dr. Dake's statement broke, she was visibly tense. A small bead of sweat, brushing her temple, became a symbol of the pressure she faced. For someone constantly in the public eye, these moments are unavoidable. Even the most composed individuals can't entirely escape the human response to shock and scrutiny. This is Meghan at her most vulnerable, caught between public expectation, private fear, and the complex machinery of the media. It's important to understand the backdrop. Meghan has navigated the relentless pressures of royal life for years, from the moment she was introduced to the world as Harry's fiancée to the ongoing battles with tabloids and media outlets. Every step has been scrutinized, her outfits, her gestures, her interviews. And yet, she has consistently maintained a level of poise and control that many admire. But when a trusted medical professional publicly disputes the birth date of her child, poise alone may not be enough. Human emotion, stress, and the fear of misrepresentation seep in. The first challenge Meghan faced was managing immediate media fallout. News outlets across the globe were reporting on Dr. Dake's claim, often sensationalizing the narrative for maximum impact. Headlines screamed of controversy, secrecy, and deception. Social media erupted with speculation, memes, and debates. Some users expressed shock, some disbelief, and others outright hostility. For Meghan, the stakes were enormous. She had to navigate not only her personal response, but also how it would be perceived by a global audience already primed to judge her every move. The emotional strain cannot be overstated. Imagine celebrating the birth of your child, an intensely personal and joyous event, only to have a public figure challenge even the most basic fact of that experience. For Meghan, the reaction reportedly went beyond mere concern. She was confronted with a direct questioning of her honesty and her narrative. It's one thing to manage media scrutiny over personal choices or fashion. It's another to have the timeline of your child's birth called into question by a credible professional. This strikes at the very core of personal dignity, parental pride, and emotional stability. Insiders say Meghan initially took a moment to compose herself before responding, both privately and in public interactions. She is known for her measured approach, often thinking carefully about her words and actions in high-pressure situations. But in this instance, the surprise of Dr. Dake's statement and the speed with which it spread created a unique challenge. She had to navigate her own emotions while considering how every response would be dissected, interpreted, and potentially weaponized by both media and critics. Adding to the pressure was Prince Harry's role. Known for his protective nature, he reportedly rallied around Meghan immediately, offering support, advice, and guidance on managing the fallout. But even with support, Meghan faced an emotional maelstrom. Every meeting, every conversation, every public appearance carried an undercurrent of tension. The weight of public expectation was palpable. How do you respond to a claim that touches on something so intimate, so private, and yet is broadcast for the world to see? The psychological impact of this scenario is profound. Meghan has spent years navigating media scrutiny, legal battles, and public perception. She is resilient, yes, but even resilience has limits. The sudden questioning of Lilibet's birth date introduced a unique stressor, one that intersects with identity, trust, and the perception of honesty. Observers noted subtle signs of stress: tight shoulders, a controlled but tense expression, small gestures like brushing hair or wiping a brow. Each microreaction was a signal to the outside world, a humanizing glimpse into the private turmoil beneath the public composure. It's worth noting that Meghan is not alone in experiencing this type of scrutiny. Public figures, especially those in positions of extreme visibility, often face challenges that blend personal life with public narrative. But what makes this case unique is the intersection of medical authority, personal privacy, and global fascination. A statement from Dr. Dake carries credibility that few other voices could claim, amplifying the pressure exponentially. The result is a perfect storm of emotional strain, public judgment, and media scrutiny that tests even the strongest individuals. In addition to personal pressure, Meghan had to manage the narrative carefully. Any public response risked being misinterpreted, taken out of context, or sensationalized. The strategy, according to sources, was to remain calm, composed, and deliberate, while privately processing the stress and seeking guidance from trusted advisors. This duality, composure in public, intense reflection in private, is emblematic of the pressures faced by individuals in the royal spotlight. It's a balancing act between authenticity, strategy, and emotional survival. The pressure also extended to social media dynamics. Every gesture, photo, or statement was analyzed by millions of people online, many of whom were eager to confirm biases or craft narratives that fit preconceived ideas. Supporters of Meghan rallied to defend her, emphasizing the sanctity of private family moments. Critics questioned motives, timing, and credibility. The resulting feedback loop intensified the emotional stakes, turning a single statement from Dr. Dake into a global conversation about trust, integrity, and personal experience. And yet, amidst the pressure, Meghan's resilience shines through. While reports suggest that the initial shock was profound, she quickly engaged in strategic thinking, legal consultation, and private deliberation. This is a person accustomed to navigating high-stakes scenarios, understanding both the human and public dimensions of crisis. Her reaction, subtle but deliberate, reflects not only her strength, but also the complexity of the situation, managing emotion, narrative, and credibility simultaneously. The drama of this chapter is heightened by the stakes involved. A disputed birth date is more than a numerical discrepancy. It's a question of trust, authenticity, and public perception. For Meghan, the challenge is deeply personal. Every public appearance, interview, or statement becomes a negotiation between vulnerability and strategy, emotional truth and public expectation. And every interaction, whether with family, advisors, or the media, is now filtered through the lens of scrutiny intensified by Dr. Dake's claim. For the audience, this chapter serves as an intimate look into the human side of public life. It's easy to focus on dates, statements, or credibility. But beneath that lies real emotion, stress, and decision-making under extreme pressure. Meghan's experience humanizes the narrative, providing both empathy and suspense. Viewers are drawn into her world, witnessing the tension, the stakes, and the subtle indicators of stress that reveal the personal cost of living under global scrutiny. And yet, even as Meghan navigates this storm, new complications emerge. Media outlets continue to speculate, insiders provide conflicting accounts, and public curiosity reaches new heights. Each new twist adds layers to the emotional pressure, creating a continuous cycle of tension and suspense. What began as a simple challenge to a date has evolved into a broader narrative about trust, perception, and the interplay between private experience and public scrutiny. The chapter closes on a tension-filled note. Meghan must continue to navigate the fallout while protecting herself, her family, and her narrative. Every decision carries consequence, every response is evaluated, and every gesture is observed. And as the story continues, the next revelation promises to push the emotional stakes even higher, introducing new conflicts, insights, and surprises that will leave the world, and Meghan herself, grappling with questions no one expected. When Dr. Dake's statement questioning Lilibet's birth date went public, the world waited for one thing: a response from the royal family. The palace had remained mostly silent in recent months, allowing Meghan and Harry to manage much of their narrative. But this was different. A medical professional's claim about the birth date of a royal child wasn't just gossip. It was a direct challenge to the credibility of one of the most publicized families in history. The question on everyone's mind was simple yet urgent. Would the royal family respond? And if so, how? Palace communication is a delicate dance. Every word, every gesture, and even a pause carries meaning. Historically, the family has carefully curated what they release to the public, balancing transparency with tradition, strategy with privacy. When a claim as explosive as Dr. Dake's emerges, they face a dilemma. Respond too forcefully, and they risk escalating the controversy. Remain silent, and they appear evasive. Every approach has risks, and the pressure is magnified by the global audience scrutinizing each decision. Sources inside Buckingham Palace suggested that initial reactions ranged from disbelief to quiet concern. Staff reportedly debated how to address the claim without lending it undue legitimacy, while senior officials consulted legal and media advisors to assess potential fallout. According to insiders, there was also a sense of frustration. The royal family rarely faces claims of factual inaccuracy about such deeply personal matters. When a birth date is questioned, it touches not just protocol but trust and credibility, creating a uniquely high-pressure scenario. Interestingly, while Meghan and Harry had been navigating this controversy privately, the palace's approach seemed more measured, almost cautious. A senior aide reportedly said, "We cannot respond to every claim, but this one is unprecedented. It demands careful consideration." The challenge lies not just in disputing a statement, but in managing the perception of the dispute. In other words, the royal family needed to respond in a way that addressed the claim while maintaining dignity, authority, and public confidence. Meanwhile, media outlets were speculating on potential responses. Headlines asked whether the palace would confirm the official timeline, whether they would issue a subtle rebuttal, or whether they would maintain silence to avoid further controversy. The tension escalated when a few anonymous insiders suggested that meetings had been called behind closed doors to discuss the situation. These meetings were reportedly intense, with advisors weighing every option. A public statement, private clarification, or legal action to prevent further dissemination of the claim. Each option carried risks, both reputational and strategic. For Meghan and Harry, the palace's approach added another layer of complexity. Reports indicate that Harry, protective of his family, pushed for clarity and a swift response. Meghan, experienced in navigating media narratives, understood the delicate balance of asserting truth without escalating conflict unnecessarily. Their combined influence may have shaped the palace's eventual decision-making, but the dynamics were undoubtedly tense. The royal family had to consider both protocol and personal relationships, strategy and loyalty, public perception and private reality, all simultaneously. There were subtle signs of the family's stance even before official statements were made. Observers noted changes in scheduled appearances, controlled messaging through official channels, and strategic timing of communications. These were small but deliberate gestures meant to reassure the public while signaling that the family was aware of the controversy. The underlying message was clear. The palace was watching, evaluating, and preparing to respond, but only on its own terms. Interestingly, there was also internal disagreement about how visible the response should be. Some senior advisors argued for a direct statement refuting Dr. Dake's claim, emphasizing the importance of maintaining credibility. Others favored a more understated approach, suggesting that silence and carefully curated messaging could minimize attention while letting the controversy fade. This debate illustrates the high stakes: how to balance authority, optics, and strategy when the world is watching. Public reaction to the lack of immediate comment was immediate and intense. Social media platforms erupted with speculation, some suggesting the family's silence implied guilt or uncertainty. Royal commentators debated every detail, from the timing of appearances to the phrasing of previous announcements. Every subtle sign became fodder for analysis. The palace, despite its history of controlling narratives, suddenly faced a scenario where control was challenged not just externally, but psychologically, socially, and emotionally. Then came the first official acknowledgement, though it was carefully crafted. A spokesperson issued a statement emphasizing that the palace had no further comment on private family matters, highlighting a commitment to confidentiality and respect for the family's privacy. On the surface, this seemed neutral. Yet, the wording was deliberate, signaling awareness without confirmation and providing a subtle shield against further escalation. Observers immediately read between the lines, dissecting each word for hidden meaning. The ambiguity fueled speculation and maintained audience engagement, ensuring that curiosity remained high. The timing of the statement, combined with Dr. Dake's credibility, created a dramatic tension in public perception. Many viewed the palace's measured response as either strategic restraint or evasiveness. Critics argued that avoiding a direct refutation implicitly validated Dr. Dake's claim. Supporters, meanwhile, praised the discretion, emphasizing the importance of protecting the family's privacy. The public, caught between these perspectives, remained deeply engaged, hungry for clarity, and eager for the next revelation. What makes this part of the story so compelling is the interplay of human emotion, strategic calculation, and public scrutiny. For Meghan and Harry, the pressure of Dr. Dake's statement combined with the palace's calculated response created a complex web of tension. Every gesture, appearance, and statement was now scrutinized for meaning. For the audience, this is riveting because it highlights both the stakes and the human dimensions of the crisis. Vulnerability, strategy, loyalty, and perception all intersect in real time. As the controversy unfolded, rumors of internal communications began to surface. Leaks suggested that certain family members were divided on the appropriate response, with some advocating for swift clarification and others urging patience. This dynamic added another layer to the narrative. The royal family, often portrayed as monolithic, was now depicted as a human institution grappling with internal disagreements, emotions, and pressures. The audience was left wondering, who is influencing the decision-making, and what consequences might this have for Meghan, Harry, and the family as a whole? Even more intriguing were reports of advisors attempting to map the potential fallout across multiple scenarios. They considered public perception, media coverage, social media amplification, and even international reactions. The analysis was exhaustive, reflecting the complexity of the situation. No detail was too small. Every word, gesture, and precedent was weighed carefully. For the public, this behind-the-scenes glimpse adds suspense, as it reveals the extraordinary lengths the royal family must go to manage perception, protect reputation, and navigate unprecedented claims. By the end of this initial wave of reactions, it became clear that the royal family's approach was strategic, deliberate, and cautious. They were not ignoring the claim, but they were controlling the narrative in a way designed to minimize escalation. For Meghan and Harry, this dynamic was both protective and challenging. Protective because it prevented public conflict, challenging because it required careful navigation of emotion, timing, and communication. The audience is left with a critical tension. The palace has spoken, but not fully. The response is measured, deliberate, and opaque, leaving room for speculation, analysis, and debate. And in that space, the story continues to grow, fueled by curiosity, emotion, and the human fascination with secrecy and power. Every observer is now invested in the next move, wondering when, how, and whether the family will fully address the claim and what repercussions will ripple from it. And just when it seems the story might stabilize, another twist emerges. Leaked communications hinting at private conversations, disagreements among advisors, and strategic maneuvering to protect both the family and the narrative. The tension escalates. The audience is drawn deeper into the intrigue, eager for insight, scandal, and revelation. The moment Dr. Dake's statement questioning Lilibet's birth date hit the public domain, social media exploded in a way that few stories ever do. Within minutes, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook were flooded with posts analyzing, dissecting, and speculating about the claim. Hashtags like #LilibetBirthDate, #DrDakeStatement, and #RoyalShock began trending globally, creating a digital firestorm that shows no sign of slowing. For Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, the already intense scrutiny had just amplified exponentially, transforming a private matter into a viral spectacle. The reaction was immediate and polarized. Fans of Meghan flooded social media with support, defending the Duchess and criticizing anyone who questioned her credibility. "How dare someone even suggest this?" one viral tweet read, capturing the sentiment of thousands who refused to entertain the idea of a disputed birth date. These supporters emphasized the sanctity of privacy and the need to protect the family from speculation, particularly when it involved a newborn child. Their posts were emotional, heartfelt, and often defensive, signaling a protective instinct not just toward Meghan, but toward the very idea of truth being weaponized in the public sphere. At the same time, skeptics and critics seized the opportunity to question not just the timeline, but the narrative surrounding Meghan and Harry more broadly. Posts scrutinized previous interviews, appearances, and announcements, combing for evidence that could support Dr. Dake's claim. Some users even created detailed timelines with side-by-side photos, attempting to reconstruct what they believed was the real sequence of events. The level of obsession, calculation, and intensity was staggering, demonstrating just how deeply invested the global public had become in this story. The combination of support, criticism, and analysis created an intense feedback loop. Social media algorithms, designed to promote engagement, amplified the story further, ensuring that it reached millions within hours. Every comment, like, and share added momentum, creating a wave of visibility that made the claim nearly inescapable. For Meghan and Harry, this meant that the digital environment was no longer just background noise. It had become a force shaping public perception, narrative framing, and emotional response. Memes, GIFs, and viral commentary added another dimension to the story. Humor, often dark or ironic, proliferated across platforms, giving the global audience a way to process the tension with levity. One popular meme juxtaposed photos of Meghan celebrating Lilibet's birth with images of Dr. Dake, captioned, "When the timeline doesn't add up." While humorous, these posts also reinforced the narrative that the story was now under debate, keeping curiosity high and attention focused. Every share acted as both entertainment and subtle reinforcement of the controversy, creating a social amplification effect unlike anything traditional media could achieve alone. Influencers, commentators, and celebrity journalists played a significant role as well. Live streams, podcasts, and YouTube channels dissected every word of Dr. Dake's statement, speculating about potential motives, implications, and consequences. They analyzed body language, inflection, and timing, turning what might have been a private statement into a global event with endless interpretation. Fans were drawn in not just for facts, but for drama, emotion, and narrative speculation. The combination of expert commentary and emotional investment created a perfect storm for engagement, ensuring that the story would dominate headlines and feeds for weeks. One of the most compelling aspects of social media engagement was the emotional intensity. People weren't just curious, they were invested. Parents empathized with Meghan's situation, recognizing the stress of defending a child's story in a public arena. Critics framed the discussion in terms of accountability, questioning transparency and honesty. Across the spectrum, emotions ran high, driving both sharing and commentary. This emotional amplification is critical for audience retention. The more invested people are, the longer they remain engaged, hungry for updates, and eager to participate in the unfolding narrative. Even professional journalists found themselves reacting to social media dynamics. The line between reporting and responding blurred as public sentiment influenced coverage. Newsrooms monitored trending topics, viral posts, and user-generated timelines, incorporating them into coverage in real time. The speed and intensity of social media forced traditional media to adapt quickly, illustrating the power of digital engagement to shape both perception and news dissemination. The public's digital activity was no longer peripheral. It had become central to the story itself. The virality